Going down deep, dark rabbit holes with negative thinking is something that I know a lot about. We won't get into that now because we don't have that much time. But since I've got such a vast experience with this, and I no longer have an uncontrollable relationship with my monkey brain, I thought I'd share some tips with you guys on how to take control over your brain and not let your negative thinking fully impact your life to the extent that I know it can. I know that negative ass chatter can hold you back from so many things in life, and taking full control over it is something that is so important and can help you out in so many different ways. Unfortunately, the conventional Western standard day-to-day life doesn't incorporate or prioritize any deep inner personal growth. The only growth we're encouraged to make in our lives has to do with external things around us, like jobs, parenting, school, higher education, all of these kinds of things. But no one really prioritizes inner growth, taking care of yourself inside, figuring out what you really want in this life, dealing with any kinds of traumas or past experiences that you've had. All this kind of stuff is shut out, and we're kind of, I don't know if it's fully, bluntly, and consciously, or more of a kind of subconscious thing we're taught, but we're definitely taught to kind of brush that under the rug. Don't look at the ugly stuff. Don't think too much about these things, and move on with your life, because that's what will make you happy. I think at this point we all know that that is kind of bullshit. We recognize that we really need to look at our emotions and confront the things we have gone through in our lives. But that can seem like such a big feat, something huge to deal with, and I think a lot of people don't really know how to go about it and how to incorporate certain daily practices into their lives to be able to achieve these things. If we really think about it, it's quite crazy that these things are not prioritized and that these things aren't really taught to us in schools. It's not really shown to be a priority to know all the sides of yourself, all of the deep inner workings of yourself. But if you think about it, it doesn't really make any rational sense to ignore these things, because how can you really go through life and fully enjoy and reap all of the benefits of life if you don't really know all sides of yourself? And once we start doing this, that's when we can start to take control over our lives and over our minds. The negative chatter, the judgmental thoughts, whether it's of the self or of your external circumstances, that really quietens down once you start practicing certain things on a daily basis, doing them consistently, and really getting to know and be acquainted with your authentic self. There are three main practices that I think are vital to taking control over your mind and not letting your monkey brain really navigate your entire life. And what I mean by monkey brain is your automatic thought process. A lot of times we think and we have negative thoughts, we judge everything, we let our minds kind of take us on a roller coaster throughout the day, and we don't really have full control over this. It's kind of subconsciously. If you've ever noticed yourself in a moment where you feel really negative and down, and you realize you've been playing out this narrative in your mind for no particular reason, that is your automatic thought process. You don't really focus or control what you are thinking about. But you can have full control. It is totally possible, and it becomes relatively easy once you start consistently incorporating certain habits into your life. By incorporating these habits, you're able to take a step back from your thoughts, because your thoughts are not your reality. A lot of times our thoughts try to persuade us that what we are thinking is what is happening. Meanwhile, our reality can look completely different. But our little monkey brains like to convince us that there's something else going on, usually something much worse. So by taking control over your mind, you're essentially able to distance yourself from what your brain tries to teach you, tries to persuade you is the truth. And you're able to look at the situation rationally and with a different perspective. Your mind no longer controls how you feel every day. You don't have irrational emotions. You don't let your anger take control over you to the same extent as you do if you just automatically go through life without really practicing things like mindfulness. It can create such massive shifts for you in all different areas of your life, in your relationships, friendships, what you pursue in life, your dreams, the way you perceive your dreams and the paths that you're meant to take. It can really shift everything in your life for the better. So here are the habits that I truly think are vital for everyone to incorporate in their lives. First things first, something you will hear me mention probably in every single video that I post on here, and that is meditation. Daily meditation is something that I think is vital and life-changing in the long run. It's something that a lot of people have these preconceived notions or judgments about. You might think of the typical Buddhist monk or some kind of guru that you've seen a Netflix documentary or two about. And while yes, there are many forms of meditation, including those, the beautiful thing about it, and I think the most important thing about it, is that you make it your own. It can be whatever you want it to be, but it will always provide certain benefits in the long run in your life. By giving yourself this time and space every single day, you give yourself and your mind room to just breathe. Our brains, from the second we wake up to the second we go to sleep, are always busy. When you wake up and you pick up your phone, you start processing data. All of the information that you're reading, your brain starts automatically judging things that are going on around the world, other people that you see on Instagram or social media. And that basically happens until you go to sleep. The only time your mind has to rest is when you're sleeping. But the thing with that is you're sleeping and you are unconscious. You are not processing what you are going through. So by doing something like meditation, your brain and your mind is able to quieten down while you are still conscious. You create this room and space for your mind to deal with whatever it needs to deal with on that day. By this I mean a meditation practice on one day can be completely different for you than on the next day. There have been many meditations for me personally where I've had these huge life-shifting realizations because I gave my mind the space to just be quiet, have no other information coming at it. I gave it space to deal with whatever needed to be dealt with at that time. So I was able to get these kind of like downloads, realizing, oh, I'm holding on to this. Oh, that's why I acted this way the other day, irrationally or emotionally. And you really are able to kind of work through things just through sitting in quiet and in stillness. Experiences like this enable you to get to know yourself and your mind so much more. The way I perceived myself before I started meditating on a regular basis versus the way I see myself now are completely different sides of this spectrum. You learn to accept all of the sides of yourself, the sides that you might perceive to be ugly or not ideal compared to the standards that you see around you. Of course, through this, your confidence goes up. The way you move through life changes completely. The domino effects or the ripple effects are seriously almost never ending. It is the biggest piece of advice I could give to anyone. Meditate every day, at least a few times a week if you can't manage every day, but I think you can. It really is life-changing. Now, the second habit that I think is vital in our lives is mindfulness. This is something that goes hand in hand with meditation, but it also is kind of its own concept. What mindfulness instills in us is being fully present in the moment. What I mentioned before is something that you can also incorporate in your daily life. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 20-minute session of you sitting down and being quiet. It can also be something that you do throughout the day. And after practicing meditation and mindfulness for a while, you start being able to practice mindfulness without some kind of app reminding you to. You start kind of seeing your brain going on these tangents, and you're able to kind of step back and disassociate yourself from these thought spirals that you typically would have just gone down beforehand. But until you get to a place where you're able to do that instinctively or independently, there are different ways to kind of practice mindfulness. One great place to start is start by using an app. There are many apps that you can download, and they're for free and they're easy peasy to use. But they essentially prompt you to take a minute or 2 or 5 to just be still. Usually focusing on your breath helps because it gives your mind something to focus on. And by doing this throughout the day, every single day, you're able to kind of take a break from your mind. Just as we take breaks at work or, when we were at school or from anything else that you're doing for a prolonged period of time, it's super essential to take a break from your monkey brain that's always doing things and processing things and trying to get you through the day. Simply being present in a moment is very essential to our mental well-being. And that's for anybody, no matter what your circumstances are or what your mental well-being is already like. I think this is for everyone, even those people who feel fully happy and content in life. And I know this can seem quite uncomfortable for a lot of people because our minds are kind of programmed at this point to be constantly doing something or processing some kind of information. With the evolution of technology, we are always processing shit, but it can become so chaotic that by the end of the week, you're just dying for the weekend because your brain has gone into overload. And if that sounds like you, if this idea of being quiet and still for several minutes in a day, if that's too uncomfortable for you, then I think this is even more vital for you than for anyone else. Because if you can't deal with the fact of being alone, being still, being quiet, being just by yourself without looking through a TikTok app or whatever the hell you're looking at, if you can't manage that, not just your mental well-being will experience consequences. That will have a big ripple effect on your life. It is super important for us to be comfortable and at ease and at peace just with ourselves, without the need for other kind of information in our space. A lot of times we feel this discomfort because we know subconsciously there are certain things we might be holding on to that we don't want to confront in this moment. But that discomfort is essential. We need to confront those things so we can let them go eventually, process them, and then let them go. And once we're able to do that, then we become lighter. We're not holding on to any kind of heaviness. We don't feel suffocated every day, and the ripple effects go on and on and on and on. And kind of stemming from that, the third habit or practice that I think is essential for our lives and our mental well-being and being able to take control of our thoughts is subconscious work. Now that might sound a little bit intimidating for you, or you might already think like therapy. Not necessarily that. It doesn't necessarily have to be something like therapy, but there are habits that we can take, we can practice in our lives that help us process these kinds of mind garbagey things that we like to hold on to. Things like journaling or healing modalities like breath work and yoga, or even things like conventional therapy. These practices allow you to dig deep inside yourself, and a lot of times you are confronted with things that you didn't even know were bugging you. You didn't even know were holding you back or making you act a certain way in your relationships, or perceive money in a certain way, or perceive your abilities and your skills and the way that you present yourself to the world. Our subconscious brain likes to hold on to these things and kind of create a little layer around them to make sure we don't really realize it. In a way, it's like protection. It's like a little protection blanket. But dealing with these kinds of traumas is so vital for what we're able to achieve in life. Because at the end of the day, do you really want to experience a mediocre ass life in your little comfort zone? Or do you want to like experience the most amazing, crazy experiences and have the craziest moments and have wild adventures and go through some discomfort? And if you by any chance answered that you are okay without having amazing experiences and you want your little comfort, think about the fact that a lot of times these things that we hold on to and these kinds of experiences we've had that we don't want to confront and deal with, they will come back to kind of haunt us, or they will come back up in the future at some point, kind of inevitably. For example, if you dealt with a shitty relationship and you think you're okay, you think you're ready for another relationship, but you're really not. Maybe there's still some stuff that you're holding on to that might come back up in the future. Even if you're, a few months into a relationship and you think, oh, look, I've got this, we're happy, whatever. Maybe one day in the future when your partner changes a little bit or your circumstances change, the kind of traumas that you experienced through that past relationship can kind of start coming back out and being expressed as things like anger or frustration, or making the other person feel guilty for certain things. These really ugly human emotions and actions usually come out through things that we haven't dealt with in the past. So by being able to clear this out, essentially kind of clears your slate, and you're able to kind of go through life without any kind of high highs and low lows and these extremes that a lot of us kind of go through in life. It's so much better to heal your stuff now before getting to a place where you don't know when or where or why something is going to come up, and then it can have a huge effect on friendships, relationships, even your work or family relationships. It's better to heal yourself rather than let it get to that point. So essentially, we need to go down these deep, dark rabbit holes willingly and consistently enough, because there's a lot of shit down there that we need to see to be able to let go of and move forward. By doing work like this and by incorporating certain habits into your life, you're able to take control of your mind and take control of your your life, and it's the most invaluable experience that is possible. Unfortunately, ignorance is not really bliss. It can be momentary bliss, but that shit won't last, and one day it will inevitably explode in your face and bliss no more. So I so strongly recommend incorporating these habits, or at least playing around with one or two of the things that I've mentioned here, because it can really, really be such an amazing process and journey to go through in your life. So if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. If you are interested in these kinds of topics like self-development, meditation, spirituality, whatever, feel free to subscribe to this channel. I will be posting one video a week talking about these kinds of topics. You can also like the video and comment down below if there are certain things that you practice, or if you've experienced certain shifts with kind of taking control over your life through doing things like mindfulness or practicing meditation. That would be so amazing. I'd love to hear your experiences with this. I look forward to hearing from you guys, and I will see you in the next one.